Hello and welcome to Emma's podcast. In today's podcast, we are doing another collaboration, and this time we have Paul von Hartmann, and we still have Michael, our dear friend Michael Kamp. And Paul is an international cannabis scholar, photojournalist, filmmaker, and HCU alum, special major, or in BA, special major. You're going to have to tell us what special major he was in 1978. In his forthcoming book, Cannabis versus Climate Change, he introduced objective science and an ecological perspective on hemp agriculture, theorized and protocol delineated afford time-limited achievable action for addressing climate change, food security, sustainable energy, and health. The timely shift in cannabis value from illegal to essential is ultimately good news for our planet, ourselves, and future generation. All right, that's a lot. So the first question, a lot. Yeah. We're going to try to dissect or go through
and
some
it's
of those
condensed,
areas.
Emma, that's also condensed. So
yeah, just add water.
Yes. Oh, so first, good morning, Paul. I know it's very early where you are, and rise and shine, like we always said.
I've been up.
How did you get started?
I've been up since 5.
Well, you are in West Coast. We're in Central Time. Okay, it's not that bad. I was about 5 o'clock when I get up too, but it was a little earlier than yours. But this is great to know you're early bird. We love that. So if you need to call people, you can go after 5 a.m. He's always up, ready to go. I'm gonna be yelled at in a minute. Question for you. How did you start it all with cannabis? First of all, what was your special major 1978 in your BA? What was it?
Well, my special major was one of the first special majors that the California State University system approved. And I had been a wildlife management major until that point. And so I'd studied a lot of life sciences, chemistry and biology and zoology and such. And when they offered the special major program, it was possible to combine upper division courses from different disciplines in order to create a unique education. And as soon as they announced it, I initiated my special major combining upper division courses in art, wildlife behavior, journalism, with a minor in aviation. And so I focused primarily on photography and illustration and painting and cinematography in my art studies. And in wildlife behavior, of course, that involved a lot of life sciences prerequisites and population dynamics and ecology and things like that. And then in journalism, I focused mainly on nature writing and translating scientific papers into layman's language so that people could understand what the scientists were presenting in their papers, because many scientists do wonderful work, but nobody can understand the vernacular of the discipline. So my major was approved after 9 months of wrangling with the administration, and I wound up as a international photojournalist documenting environmental conditions and issues, and just accumulated a portfolio that has depth and breadth. I got my pilot's license the same year I got my degree, and have been flying hang gliders and powered aircraft, and traveling the world making photographs for the last 30 years, mainly of cannabis and the cannabis industry in Europe, where I lived for 10 years.
So the question is, why did you directed yourself to the cannabis and not something else? Like, well, I don't know, gas and oil or anything like that, especially when it comes down to climate?
Well, I was the director for Sea Shepherd in Hawaii for several years before I learned that you could make fuel from cannabis. And I immediately realized that the fuel industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and that was the main motivation for marijuana prohibition, which the marijuana industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but trillions are much bigger than billions. And
yes,
the fuel industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And so I understood that the prohibition of cannabis, inclusive of hemp, was a foundational issue that was relevant to all other issues that I was working on with Sea Shepherd. And so it basically came down to developing a philosophy of respect for nature and boiling down everything into those three words, because that's really where we jumped the tracks as a species on this planet before any of us were born. I mean, we were born into the institutional slavery that determined the basis for a toxic economic system based in fossil fuels and war. And so I started Project Peace. I turned Sea Shepherd over to a friend of mine, and I initiated Planet Ecology Advancing Conscious Energy Economics Evolution. And that was the project that I started in 1991, and I continue to this day in educating people about the true value of cannabis as mankind's functional interface with the natural order.
So you said you were in Hawaii when you started all with Project Shepherd?
I was director for Sea Shepherd in Hawaii, yes.
So what is Sea Shepherd for people who do not know?
Sea Shepherd is a very aggressive environmental group that destroys the machinery used to kill animals in violation of international treaties. And so when people are killing animals in violation of international treaties, Sea Shepherd is the ocean-going arm of Earth First that goes in and either confiscates the equipment, in some cases fishing nets that are 5 miles long, or otherwise disables pirate whaling ships that are killing the whales in violation of international law. And so in its history, Sea Shepherd has been responsible for disabling more than 10 pirate whaling ships and putting an end to the killing of these magnificent creatures that are our masters of evolution that we have failed to recognize for the lessons that they have to teach our infant species. And because we have not learned those lessons, we are teetering on the brink of irreversible systemic collapse. And that's what I'm here to try to help our species avoid, is irreversible systemic collapse. And so Sea Shepherd is a direct action organization. They take direct action to stop the killing. And I brought that style of environmentalism to the hemp movement. In 1991, I planted, well, actually it was 1992, January 1st, I planted cannabis publicly in Hawaii and challenged the state attorney general in that state. And then in 1993, for Earth Day in Sacramento, I planted cannabis publicly again on the steps of the state capitol, and have challenged the rightful jurisdiction of the court over any herb-bearing seed, because our freedom to farm every herb-bearing seed is the first test of religious freedom. And I founded the California Cannabis Ministry when my son was born in 2007, and have always maintained that cannabis is too valuable a natural resource to be within the rightful jurisdiction of any court.
So why do you think we still have resistance at that level? Because I'm a non-user, but I've learned a lot from Michael and Renee, talking about the holistic side of that plant that everybody seems like they're ignoring for some unknown reason.
Well, the economic inertia that we were born into favors toxic industries. The fossil fuels industry, the logging industry, the cotton industry is very chemical intensive and dependent on unsustainable farming practices. And so the flow of money that determines the character of our governance, of our political leadership, has been firmly entrenched in the two dominant industries that determine where most of the money goes in the world, and that's the fossil fuels industry and the military industrial complex that supports the wars for oil and profits from the wars that are inevitable under the conditions that we were born into, by prohibiting the world's most valuable agricultural resource that's capable of making fossil fuels obsolete. Then we are put on a track that is inevitably bound for extinction. And we're at that point now where we can see the brick wall that we're headed for evolutionarily. And we have to make a choice about whether to remain addicted to fossil fuels and war, or to shift from cannabis is illegal to cannabis is essential. And that's the struggle that we're in the middle of right now. It's very exciting to see it happening, but we have to accelerate the process in the right direction. And that's why I introduced the accelerated federal protocol, essential military and civilian demand, into my book and into my film, in order to get people to recognize that the people are the fourth branch of government. In every country, the people outnumber the politicians. And so if the people demands access to cannabis and a truly free market economy, which we've never known, then we can plant our energy regionally, and we can grow our food at the same time that we're growing our clean fuel. And if people aren't growing cannabis right now for seed and stock, then they're food and energy insecure, because whatever they depend upon for those things now may or may not be available very soon for a variety of reasons.
Paul, I've just got to say, your story is so beautiful. It doesn't matter how many times I hear it. I learn more and more from you each time. And I just got to say, myself, all my partners, we're extremely excited and ecstatic to support you and what you've been doing your whole life, and being part of this movement of making a difference. And I love the word, and you ain't used it yet, and understanding and implementing Gaia therapeutic measures, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the key. If it doesn't heal the earth, it's not worth doing. Money has no value unless it buys time. Time is the only thing we can't make more of. Time is the limiting factor in the equation of survival. Time is the NFT of the 21st century. And cannabis buys time because it solves several major global environmental problems all at the same time. It's really incredible to have the perspective that I do, because it just creates enormous optimism for the future, in spite of the fact that things look so bleak right now. And I think if you can offer people investment in time and optimism, then you have something that no one else has. And that's what I offer to people. And I just want to acknowledge that, Michael has been supportive of me. He's one of a few people who have actually reached into their own pocket and helped to keep my phone turned on, because what's happened is that as I get older, it's harder and harder for me to earn the money that used to sustain my activism. Nobody pays me to do this. And so, my body is breaking down over time, and the market in Oregon for cannabis has collapsed because the market has been flooded by corporate weed and
corporate garbage.
Yeah. And so it's pulled the rug out from under, my ability to even, keep the wolf away from the door. So, when people do step up and help me to help them, it makes a big difference. And that's the basis of dolphin economics: is you help me, help you, help everyone. And if people want to live, if they want a world that is functional and as wonderful as it has been up to this point, then we have to take a look at what are the things that are worth doing and worth supporting. And right now, the cannabis industry is the most Gaia therapeutic industry there is. It's the most earth healing industry because it's the only industry that produces the atmospheric aerosol terpenes that shield the planet from the increasing solar UVB radiation. And there's a lot of concern about global warming, but the real threat is the global broiling by UVB radiation that's increasing and has been increasing all of our lives. And the reason that it's increasing is because we're cutting down the boreal forests and we're killing the marine phytoplankton that used to produce the atmospheric aerosol terpenes that refract solar radiation away from the planet and serve as cloud condensation nuclei to form bright and persistent clouds that also shield the planet from the sun. And people need to understand that this is really important because there's a lot of talk of carbon drawdown and carbon sequestration, but there's very little talk about replenishing the atmosphere with terpenes. And if we don't...
Hold on, Paul. Paul, you used some really, really big words there. Are you telling me that hemp can not only make food, fuel, clothing, paper, regenerate the soil, sequence the air? It's also the shield for the earth from UVB?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's the only one.
Really?
Now, why haven't I heard why haven't we heard about terpenes or anything like that in any UN meetings or any sustainable and global saving committees that exist?
I can tell you
I've
that.
not. Oh, please do.
Because cannabis is the only option. And so if cannabis is produced at the scale needed to replenish Earth's atmosphere with terpenes that have been lost with the death of half of the boreal forests and half of the marine phytoplankton, then we'll be growing enough cannabis to make fossil fuels obsolete, because the terpenes go up into the atmosphere, but the stems and the stalks stay right here on Earth. And if we have all those terpenes up in the atmosphere and all those stalks down here on Earth to turn into cellulosic hydrogen and butanol and methanol and all these other clean fuels, then fossil fuels become obsolete immediately. And that threatens the status quo. And the reason that nobody's talking about the UVB radiation is because there's only one solution to it. We have to grow cannabis as fast as we can and pray it's not too late.
Well, that's interesting. I would be one of the gas and oil company. I will be hopping on that wagon, and I will start to cultivate those, because they are looking at different way of energies. I'm curious to know, why would they not be thinking about cannabis?
Well, there's only one best way to do anything. And when it comes to producing clean energy, there's no better way than by growing cannabis to produce the stalks and to turn those stalks into usable energy through biofermentation and biodigestion, which are technologies that are available to more people around the world in more countries in less time than any other method of producing energy. And because time is the limiting factor in the equation of survival, we have to look at the just the logic of turning sunlight into usable energy for the greatest number of people in the shortest span of time, because it's also the same process that will afford complete nutrition and lots of other durable goods that Michael referred to earlier, that will tie up the carbon that the cannabis sequesters. And so it's a complete package. It's a spherical solution to a spherical problem. And we need to think outside the bong about cannabis and look at.
And that's the problem. For a non-user, because I'm a non-user, the first thing you think when you hear cannabis, even dispensary, you say, oh, pothead.
Yeah.
The lack of education is appalling, and discovering more and more, like I said, I would have never met Michael. I was just thinking cannabis, it's always getting high. That's all. It's a drug of use for recreational, could be for relief, but there is no education or true education about it. But the first thing we think, it's the same that, and I'm sorry to put this in that category, but people think about cannabis, heroin, cocaine, crack, meth, everything combo in there. That's it. Got the same label, no matter what.
Sure. And that's the irrational social prejudice that we were born into, that originated 3 years before, well, actually 2 years before Hitler invaded Poland. And the association between marijuana prohibition and World War II is that cannabis is a strategic resource identified in 7 presidential executive orders as being critical to national security. And before World War II, a Nazi spy by the name of Harry Anslinger who was the son-in-law of Andrew Mellon, who was an industrialist of that period, who formed alliances with William Randolph Hearst and other rabid racists of the time, who were more in line with Hitler than they were with Franklin Roosevelt. And so the strategic value of cannabis was undermined by the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, 2 years before Hitler invaded Poland. And it took an executive order and the War Department in 1942 insisting that cannabis be reintroduced into agricultural rotations because it was needed for the war effort. And today, the same general condition exists where we need cannabis, but the prohibition of it is impeding the timely development of the industry. And the urgency of recognizing that cannabis prohibition started with Nazi espionage is relevant to including the military in the present day demand for this strategic resource, because that's the historical precedent that was set in 1942 when hemp was reintroduced in order to address the national security threat posed by the Axis powers. And so now we have the UVB threat, and we have the fossil fuels and the military industrial complex to contend with. And cannabis, again, is the solution, the singular solution to those problems. But people have to overcome that irrational social prejudice in order to objectively consider the solution that is obvious if you have an objective look at it, because cannabis is the only crop that produces complete nutrition and clean energy from the same organic harvest. And it does so for more people around the world in less time than any other agricultural resource. So the solution is simple. It's very obvious. It's the problems that are complicated. And so we are being overwhelmed by these compounding integrated problems, but the solution comes back to cannabis. And that's one of the things that makes it hard for people to accept, because I've heard, there is no silver bullet so many times. I can't count, but the fact is there's only one crop that produces all three essential fatty acids in proper proportion for long-term consumption. There's only one crop that produces the volume of atmospheric aerosol terpenes that are needed to replenish what's been lost with the death of the boreal forest and the marine phytoplankton. There's only one crop that does so many of the things that cannabis does, that, it does sound fanatical to just go through the list of things that cannabis does that no other crop does. But it's a fact that those things are true. And if all that people can say is there is no silver bullet, well, they're wrong. There is a silver bullet, and we need to recognize it while we still have time for it to work, because time is running out.
Exactly. It seems like we do have one, but the problem is somehow, somewhere over the rainbow, somebody is prohibiting, that's the case to say, to really disclose what that plant is all about, that holistic part of that plant. Because it feels like that 10% of getting high like a kite is more essential to keep embedded in people's thoughts and mind, to keep that perception of hemp is the enemy, when in fact, every plant do something different, but there is a holistic side of it that could actually help the world. So it's very interesting the lack of education and truth coming out of it. And it's been since 1942, which is very interesting. And we're at 2022, which is a joke at this point. It's kind of ironic. It's finished with a 2-2. I didn't want it to do that in purpose, but I'm thinking that maybe it's time that education supersedes. And since we have different way now to reach out, because, big brothers around the world can block everything. But now with so many social media ways and avenues, you cannot block anything anymore. It leaks everywhere. So I feel that this year is an opportunity to start that education. So the common people can understand the reality of what marijuana is, because at this point it's still recreational here, it's still pothead, but in reality there is more to it.
Yes, much more. I like to say that it takes a head to get ahead.
Yes.
Because really what cannabis is, it is a tool for evolution. And it always has served mankind as a tool in advancing our ability to use greater percentages of our brain. And the characterization of cannabis as an impediment to intellectual development is a function of the conditioning that we were all exposed to through things like Cheech and Chong, where, I can talk like Cheech and Chong if I want to, but people who smoke cannabis don't generally speak that way. Most of them, I'm smoking right now. I've got a joint in my hand as we speak. And if people
Same
think
here. I as well. Cheers, Paul. Cheers.
Sorry, guys.
Michael?
I only have a glass of water in my hand.
I said I've got one going too as well, Paul. Cheers.
Yeah.
2 out of
the
3.
thing is, the preconceived ideas and the generalized statements about cannabis are, purposefully imposed on society in order to control us. Because if people lose their irrational social prejudice against the plant and think of it just as another agricultural resource that can be used for a lot of different things, then, the people that are making money from the prohibition now won't be making that money. The bureaucracies and the law enforcement and the military industrial complex that profits from, the fossil fuels situation, all of that is established, impacted, and it is going to take the public demand and the military demand to overcome it, because soldiers don't have to die in wars for oil. And I'm sure that if you ask the rank and file military, they will tell you that they would rather not go and fight wars for oil. And so if we can eliminate the underlying motivation for war, then we can redirect the military from armies to farmies, and we can start regenerating the soil and expanding the arable base and increasing the carrying capacity of the planet. Because carrying capacity is determined by protein production. Protein is what allows us to survive. And cannabis produces the best protein for the most people on the planet. And so using cannabis to expand the arable base just makes sense. And it is, again, a function of time, because, the longer we wait, the more out of balance the natural order gets. And right now we are looking at the collapse of the marine environment, which is essentially, one of the foundational systems of this planet that if the ocean collapses, then it won't be long before life on land becomes conflicted and violent, and we probably just wind up in a thermonuclear war. I think is what we're headed for. I don't think the global warming and the temperature increase is something that we're going to see, because I think we're going to annihilate ourselves by fighting under conditions of scarcity, which we were born into. We were born into scarcity because the most valuable agricultural resource on the planet was banned for 85 years. And it still is being impeded by the market influences that compete with things like tree-free paper. The logging industry is just insane. It's crazy that we cut down 80% of the boreal forests just to make paper, when we knew that the boreal forests are the lungs of the earth. I mean, that's what we used to call them, because they produce 50% of the oxygen that we breathe. And the other 50% is produced by the marine phytoplankton. And so, we killed half of that, the marine phytoplankton also. So we've got one lung on the earth left, and we continue to cut down the boreal forest at the rate of 5 acres a minute. So, people really need to understand that what's out of sight and out of mind determines the quality of life for everyone's children. And if we're determined to heal this planet, then we have to be very, very clear and very objective in assessing what we have to work with. And right now, that's not happening. People are not looking at cannabis as a tool for healing Earth's atmosphere. And because it's uniquely qualified to do that, that means we're just running out of time. And it's just a matter of time before there's nothing that anybody can do that is going to avert global extinction. Because what happens when the UVB increases is that the solubility of mercury increases. And the solubility of mercury is already increasing. And again, it's being referred to cryptically in some of these government reports, and the UVB increase is being referred to cryptically in some of these government reports, like the recent report by the intelligence community, the threat assessment that was released on the 7th of February, 2022, refers on page 21 to the global large-scale solar geoengineering that is likely going to be the cause for additional disputes after 2030. And so on page 21 of the intelligence community's threat assessment, we can see the cryptic reference to the increasing UVB radiation, because the solar geoengineering that's mentioned is in response to the increasing UVB radiation. Right now, the schemes that are being proposed by people like Bill Gates are to scatter chalk dust in the atmosphere to shade the planet from the sun, or to float mirrors in space to reflect the sunlight away from the planet. Or also, this is my favorite ones, they want to bomb the sky. They want to shoot sulfur bombs at the sky in order to scatter sulfur into the stratosphere. And all these things can be achieved through cannabis agriculture. The terpenes are the biogenic method for shielding the planet from the sun. And that's what the boreal forest and the marine phytoplankton used to do at twice the volume that they're doing now. But, cannabis is uniquely qualified to replenish the atmosphere with terpenes. And if we don't do that before we sequester the carbon, then we'll just let more UVB radiation through. Fortunately, cannabis does both at the same time. And that's, again, it gets back to the time efficiency of the cannabis solution.
So I have a question, because by listening to you, I feel like kicking the hornet's nest for a sec here.
Good. Good.
when I'm listening to all of those climate people who are all embarking in their crusade of saving the world, saving the universe, saving the planet, but they don't even acknowledge for a minute cannabis, but they go to some crazy things about, we should stop manufacturing, we should stop the coal, we should stop this and that because we're killing ourselves. What kind of misinformation those people are getting? Because at the end of the day, there is a solution that is known, but they want to do some idiotic things like, really, I want to have sulfurous in the atmosphere right there just because you think it's going to work. I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to say, and I will not remove it from this podcast. Are they all on crack cocaine? Then they want to throw things in the air, but not use cannabis, which is the logical thing. What is wrong with those people? I'm sorry,
Well,
I have to ask.
I can explain that. It's very easy when you think about it. Problems are profitable. Money? Sure. Problems are profitable for people selling expensive solutions that don't work.
And you would think somebody would call them on that crap.
I did.
I would.
I have been. For 30 years, I've been calling them on it, Emma. And, okay. I always thought that if what I was doing was worthwhile, that eventually somebody would say, hey, that guy somebody should give him a platform. Somebody should, support his work. I'm still waiting
right here.
That.
I'm here, buddy. I'm here. Let's do it. We're going to get you your own platform and we're going to smack them in the face with the solution.
Well, the thing is, I'm more of a healer. I used to be called an eco warrior when I was with Sea Shepherd, and I was a freedom fighter for a while with cannabis. But I'm really a peaceful guy, and Project Peace, that was no accidental acronym. That was the whole point of what I do, is to heal this planet. And the Gaia therapeutic industries that I propose are profitable industries. I mean, product development is one of my hobbies. I come up with products using cannabis every day that, I've been thinking about this for 30 years, and I'm a pretty creative, cross-platform creative guy. So I come up with things that nobody else thinks about, and it's fun. And that's part of what cannabis helps me to do, is it broadens my creativity. And you look at history and all of the different, people that have used cannabis. I mean, not just the artists and the poets and the writers, but you look at some of the scientists like Carl Sagan, he was a cannabis user. And, Richard Feynman, some of the most brilliant minds in our history have been cannabis users, and all of the major religions originated through the use of entheogenic plants and fungi. And so, for people to, suddenly cop an attitude against cannabis, after, thousands of years of the plant participating in our intellectual development, really reveals the propaganda and the social conditioning that is characterized in reefer madness. That's the way I refer to the irrational social prejudice that afflicts our society in clouding the value of the true value of cannabis. Because cannabis is our functional interface with the natural order. It is exceptionally unique in that way. And we have an endogenous cannabinoid system that's built into our physiology. And I mean, we don't have an endogenous alcohol system. We don't have an endogenous, tobacco system. We have an endogenous cannabinoid system, and it distinguishes cannabis from other things that we ingest because it operates on so many different levels. nutritionally with the seed and the whole plant nutrition, which I have pioneered since the mid 90s. Ingesting the whole cannabis plant all at once affords extraordinary health benefits and healing properties that nothing else does. But you also look at the cannabinoids, or you just isolate the terpenes, for example, and the antibiotic, antifungal, antimicrobial, antiseptic properties of the terpenes, for example, are another dimension of it that put it in a category that's beyond the rightful jurisdiction of any court. And so, when we establish a clear perception of value for cannabis, it's revealed as being essential. And it can't be illegal if it's essential, because drugs don't make seeds. Herbs make seeds.
No. Yes, I agree.
It's a huge distinction. Well, it's funny because yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say
I was looking.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Paul. Finish your sentence.
I just want to point out that on the first page of the King James Bible, God is quoted as saying that every herb-bearing seed and every green herb were given to mankind. And because drugs don't make seeds and herbs do, then there's a religious freedom element to the cultivation and use of cannabis that is casually dismissed in order to impose prohibition. And the exercise of religious freedom, inclusive of cannabis, is a legitimate federal defense against prohibition that is vastly under-regarded. And we just sort of take it for granted that, seeds are the foundation of life. There's a miracle in every seed. It's called life. Instead of being birthed through the womb like people are, seeds just miraculously appear on the plants and drop to the ground and make more plants that make more seeds. Fecundity is something that is vastly, vastly underappreciated. And the fecundity of cannabis is so exceptional that one plant will produce thousands of seeds. Thousands.
And then I wanted to take this chance. I've been holding it in the chamber, right? And we started hitting the religious aspect and the documentation for so many years about the plant, and we're gonna have to have another show. So that's what's great with Paul and individuals like myself. We were blessed to know people that each little aspect that Paul's touched on. There's individuals that focus and dial in on that to such an extreme that I would really love to get them and you together, Paul, and learn, right? That's my biggest thing. I take advantage of the brilliance of you and other cannabis users and non-cannabis users, right? But that, like with Emma, you're rare to want and desire the education. But yeah, and
I'm the unicorn traveling.
But it's just not everybody strives for that knowledge. Not everybody recognizes it and can just say, all right, even the ones that say, yes, we know we're being lied to or guided or however you want to verbalize it. Even then, with knowing that, still will dismiss the things that, like Paul said, but not if Paul's saying it, because you can hear the foundational vernacular within it, but then the passion that supports it. So not everybody gets the privilege to learn from individuals like yourself, Paul. But then with bringing up the religion and we're bringing up the plant, you talked about, I don't know, probably a dozen different ways of healing the planet with the plant. And then we're hitting Genesis, and now I know you love it, Emma. You already talked about it, the year 2022, and all these twos, and we're just going to throw in Revelation 22:2. So chapter 22, verse 2 of Revelation says, down the middle of the great street of the city, on each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month globally. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. I personally feel, I know Paul does, that's cannabis. Emma, what do you think?
I was thinking when you were saying it, I thought about cannabis, actually.
Well, it qualifies in all of the descriptive phrases in that passage, and uniquely so. I mean, the global distribution of the crop affords the harvesting of the fruit, the different manners of fruit in every month of the year. I mean, it is uniquely identifiable through the description in that passage, because there's no other crop that does all that. And also cannabis is prominently featured in the recipe for the holy anointing oil that was used by Jesus, that is in Exodus 30:23. The holy anointing oil recipe, it refers to the fragrant cane. It's not identified by name in the translations since the original Hebrew, in which it was referred to as cannabis. And the etymologist Sula Benet, back in 1936, translated the original Hebrew and identified one of the major components in the holy anointing oil as being cannabis. And it was mistranslated subsequently to be described as calamus or fragrant cane, but the word cannabis is the Hebrew root of the word cannabis. So it's pretty amazing when you go to Exodus 30:23 and you see how much cannabis was used in the holy anointing oil. That was the only legitimate holy anointing oil that was used by Jesus. So, the cannabis plant has the historical chops to back it up as the tree of life.
Absolutely. It's always been there. It's not been identified or been suppressed for people to do not know, or to see it as something quote unquote evil, or, not the best things to have. But it's quite sad in one way that the education has been, closed off. The truth has been closed off for so long.
Exactly. And now the truth is setting itself free, because, more and more people are learning about the healing properties of cannabis and the useful properties of cannabis. Now they've figured out how to make rebar out of cannabis that's stronger than steel and doesn't rust.
And that's amazing. So I'm curious, it would be nice. And I think it's why I'm part of where we are today, is the education, and continue to push so everybody can understand and learn from it, because economic wise, it will help everybody, not only the few, but help people can change and give opportunity to reverse the damage of the climate, and being able to be part of the changes in a positive way.
Well, absolutely. There are more than 9,000 biodigesters in Germany. 9,000 biodigesters. The Germans are turning plant material into clean energy. We're not.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We're slow.
Yeah. And so when you grow cannabis at the scale that's needed to heal the atmosphere, not only with terpenes and not only with the carbon sequestration, but with oxygen. We need oxygen to breathe on this planet. And the boreal forest and the marine phytoplankton each produced about 50% of the oxygen that we need to breathe. And half of those species have died in the last 70 years. And so we need to replenish the Earth's atmosphere with oxygen. We need to replenish the Earth's atmosphere with terpenes. We need to sequester the carbon. We need to divest our addiction to fossil fuels and nuclear energy and the military industrial complex. We can't be making our money by waging war anymore. That's just crazy. And so we have to look at the holistic solution to these compounding problems, the foundational solution. And what's interesting,
hey,
though,
Paul, real quick,
go ahead,
because we skipped one, the regeneration of the soil. I've heard people talk. I've been trying to hunt to see if I could find some studies. I haven't been able to find it for reference, but does cannabis have the capabilities of like cleaning Chernobyl area?
Yeah, they're using it right now.
That's what I was trying to find some articles on it, but that's what I was thinking, because there was a guy in Florida talking about some issues of some big dumps in some swamp areas, and that's what they're using is cannabis.
Yeah, and you know, the cannabis that's produced is, of course, toxic. You know, it soaks up the toxicity, and that cannabis can then be used as substrate for mushroom cultivation, and the mushrooms actually transform the toxic material. The cannabis gathers it and concentrates it into a form that can be worked with and manipulated, but the fungi are actually the little alchemists that detoxify the material. And so yes, go ahead.
So now you talk about Chernobyl, because I'm from Europe, so I want to know a little bit more. When did they started to use cannabis, and how did it came up with this one? Do you know?
Well, cannabis is known in the agricultural community as a very useful rotational crop for conditioning the soil. Mm-hmm. Historically, cannabis has been considered, Thomas Jefferson referred to cannabis as being of first necessity, and he was right. Washington also told his gardener to sow it everywhere, and they did. And what happens when you do that is that the plant grows abundantly without needing any additional tending. It grows well without any attention at all in many cases. And what happens is that the wildlife are attracted to it for the feed and the cover. Mm-hmm. And so the wildlife participate in the regeneration of the soil in a number of different ways. But the process of succession that's necessary to the healing of the regions that have been damaged on this planet is accelerated in several ways by introducing cannabis. And so, when the Chernobyl released a cloud of radioactive material across Europe,
yep,
the only places that had normal levels of radiation were the biodynamic farms, the Demeter farms that are grown in accordance with the methods introduced by Rudolf Steiner back in the 1920s in a series of lectures. And Rudolf Steiner was a clairvoyant savant in many disciplines, including medicine and education and agriculture and architecture. But the Waldorf schools were a product of Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophic movement. And so the esoteric dimensions of agriculture and the spiritual dimensions of agriculture are prominently featured as part of the agricultural process when growing biodynamic crops and using biodynamic soil amendments. And that dimension of healing is referred to in a book called Secrets of the Soil by Christopher Bird and Robert Thornton. And the Secrets of the Soil describes the normalization of elevated radioactivity after Chernobyl. And so that's why I garden biodynamically. I employ Rudolf Steiner's methods in my gardening, and I try to influence farmers that I work with to adopt those methods, because there is an esoteric dimension to agriculture just inherent to it. Anybody who spends time in a garden can tell you there's a lot of spirituality that goes along with agriculture properly done. I like to think of myself as indigenous to this planet because I respect nature in every way that I can. And part of that is in properly assessing the value of nature and what we have to work with. So I think that cannabis helps me to appreciate nature in a way that I would not otherwise have developed, because I have spent a lot of time immersed in wildness. I was a commercial diver for several years on the north coast of California. I have been a cannabis grower out in the mountains of Northern California in the Emerald Triangle for several years. I was up there just living like a little deer in the woods, and that solitude and that immersion in nature for extended periods of my life have sensitized me to the things that I think help me to do the work that I do. And it's not unquantifiable sort of, they don't give you a degree or a medal for doing it, but I feel like my time has been well spent in developing those sensitivities and applying them to the intellectual development that accompanies the scholarship that I've conducted over the last 30 years in regards to cannabis. And fortunately, I'm a photographer as well and an illustrator. And so I'm able to share my perceptions with people through those media as well. I have a photograph of cannabis that I just absolutely love. I've been very lucky a number of times, but the photograph shows the refraction of sunlight by the by the terpenes in the trichomes of plant that was being harvested in Santa Cruz at the WAM garden, the Women's and Men's Alliance for Medical Marijuana in Santa Cruz. Valerie Corral and Michael were tending a garden that served terminal patients, and the privilege of being able to film in their garden one evening was accentuated by a chorus of Santa Daime worshipers who were singing in the garden while it was being harvested at sunset. And so my film, Cannabis versus Climate Change, which is on Vimeo, people can watch my film. It opens with the singing of the Santa Daime worshipers and the image of the cannabis plant at sunset, where all of the trichomes grab the sunlight and refract it in sort of a neon effect that resembles the burning bush. I mean, you could certainly characterize the image as a burning bush because the trichomes work their magic with the setting sun, which turned red as it dropped into the Pacific Ocean. And so if you haven't seen my film, I would encourage you to find Cannabis versus Climate Change on Vimeo. And you can see me 30 years ago when I was young, planting. You laugh now, but wait for 30 years.
That's funny.
Isn't it funny? It's funny and it's not funny because, you know, I didn't think it was going to take 30 years. I thought it was going to take 5.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. If I had known that cannabis prohibition was going to consume 30 years of my adult life, I don't know that I would have committed myself to it.
That's the reason you did not know. That's the reason they never told you.
I guess that's it.
Yes.
But, you know, the fact is, I look back now on my life and I'm kind of relieved that I've lived it.
Well, but you get the knowledge, you know, through those 30 years, you get your acquired knowledge, and I think a lot of people don't have. So, you know, when you're talking cannabis, I'm pretty much sure the people who put their toes into the water don't have as of a clue than you got, because you were able to give us a history then people don't know. 1942, people, remember this year? All right. That was the year they decided that, you know, we're going to go after cannabis. But it's very interesting because there is a lot of component with that plant, and I'm sure it's going to take centuries to discover more stuff about it. But we're talking Chernobyl, because for me, maybe they can do the same with in Japan with planting cannabis over there too for that plant when they got that leak. But I think it's a great way to see what that plant is capable to do, and not only in a way for the climate, but for, again, amino acid for humans, feeding, and not only this, but I'm learning through Michael as well that every plant can be planted around the world. It depends where you are, what the climate is. So there is variation. It's not one plant fits all either.
That's true.
Well, absolutely. And with you saying that, Emma, in the chat, I sent a link that you can share on the podcast if you're able to, or however.
I will.
It's on the radioactive soil, and in Italy, the steel plant, they're using it. Chernobyl, they've been doing it since 2001. So here's since a huge increase in plants. Fukushima, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but there's the power plant you were talking about that it was leaking, that they want to use it. They want to use it. And I'll have to check when this article was, but it looks, however, they can't because of the forced laws and cannabis control law, forced in Japanese law by the occupying U.S. powers. So it comes through of the U.S. is stopping them from being able to do what they want, and they've shifted to using testing to find out if sunflowers, field mustard, amaranth can, in an attempt to soak up cesium and other toxins from the soil that hemp does. Then the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency has also began experimenting involving sunflowers since 2011. And have various projects since investigated into algae, buckwheat, and spinach. But hemp, they've still not been utilized up to date. because of us. Well, not us being the U.S. powers, it says. Just reading what it says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, as I said, this is something people should know. I probably would put this on my personal blog as well, because there is so much, we're talking, people are assuming this is the boogeyman, the cannabis plant. But when you're looking at it, the hemp, when you're looking at it very closely and see what it can do, especially for radioactive soil. I'm sorry, there is an area within Chernobyl, you cannot even approach it. If you move the soil like those ding dong did when they tried to invade Ukraine, you got a bunch of troops that went over there. Well, when they came out, they're all dying right now, but they were moving the soil that was contaminated at a very high level. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Leave this alone. But
and then with
it's
that,
nice to know.
With all the other ventures we're working together, that's the great thing about a community of like-minded, but those that make effort in the change, not just talk. And it's great to be partnered with so many. Paul's opened so many doors to so many. This is only a touch of Paul. There's so many books, and this is just a few pages in a chapter of a book. And that's why I love learning from Paul. But with what we're taking that into, with healing the planet with NFTs, Paul, I'm so excited that we'll finally get to go through and sit down and look at all your pictures and incorporate your videos and all of your memories, and being able to actually have financial monetization, not only to having the time to do that and not surviving, but thriving, but also implementation of just this with the world that we live into, this digital side. And all I'm reading is that we got to get more in Europe. We got you, Emma, and you, Paul, and Renee in Africa with A of Africa, and all these opportunities to act local, think global from each component, and actually make a difference and make some finances in it through NFTs and have land bought. You know what I'm saying? We can go through and it comes in and like who you are, Paul. And we're going to be able to was here after our event. We're going to be setting up projects to purchase land, to plant hemp, to implement what you have fought for so many years, and sequence the land all simultaneously. It's absolutely ridiculous that we are not doing that. There's some that are.
I know.
But we as a collective of the human race, no, it's not even being looked at. And it's reassuring to know we've got people like you to lean on, Paul.
Well, the thing is, I am attempting to evolve in a way that is timely, and the cryptocurrency developments are something that I don't fully understand, but I am already I've already opened a wallet under the title Cannabis Block Crypto. And I secured the domain name Cannabis Block Crypto and initiated a fund that people can participate in. That is, I think, uniquely founded in value that is directly relatable to time. And time is, in my opinion, time is the NFT of the 21st century. It's the only thing we can't make more of, and we don't know how much of it we've got left. So, if people value money over time, they miss the obvious relationship that there is no money on a burned out planet. if we run out of time to heal this planet, then money has no value, because you just there's nothing to be done at that point. And so by investing in time and by recognizing the time value of cannabis in being able to solve all of these major global problems all at the same time, cannabis is the only crop that produces complete nutrition and clean energy from the same organic harvest, and in more countries around the world in less time than any other agricultural resource. So once you identify that, you directly connect cannabis and time as the best investment that can be made, because there's no other crop that can replenish Earth's atmosphere with terpenes. There's just no other crop that can do it. And the boreal forests and the marine phytoplankton are not going to regenerate under the current conditions that we can expect to get worse in the future. So once you establish that that's the priority, replenishing the atmosphere with terpenes, full stop, then a lot of other things fall into place. Suddenly you have an abundance of cannabis stalks that can be turned into cellulosic hydrogen and butanol and all these other, pyrolytic charcoal. I mean, all these different fuels that are suddenly available to people who have access to fresh, fertile hemp seed. And that's the priority, is to develop the seed stocks and to distribute the seeds to every farmer and home gardener on the planet, because there is something that everybody can do to heal this planet. We can all plant a seed. Even if you just throw it from your wheelchair, you can plant a seed, And I mean, I build wheelchair accessible gardening systems. That's one of the things that I offer people is wheelchair accessible gardens, because it's one of the most efficient ways to garden. And even if you're not in a wheelchair, it really makes gardening much more productive. But what it does, more importantly, is it helps with the transfer of knowledge and passion for gardening from one generation to the next, because the people in wheelchairs are often the people who used to, garden and farm, and now they're confined to a wheelchair because of age. But that knowledge and passion for gardening still exists in them. And if they have the ability to share that with young people who much prefer to garden standing up and running around, I've seen it happen. It's a miracle of a social dynamic that is good for everybody. The elderly, the disabled, the youth, and the community, because the production workforce is expanded in two directions at the same time. The elderly and the disabled and the children can all be productive contributors to the production of food and fuel. And that dynamic and that transfer of knowledge is critical. Because
so, talking about transfer of knowledge right now, sorry to cut you on this one, but it's been thinking in my little brain right now. I've been sitting for the past 20 minutes and I'm like, yeah, okay. So you got a lot in your brain in regard of cannabis and the history of it. How are you going to be translating it for people and pass it on your legacy?
Well, I have my book, Cannabis versus Climate Change. I have
but the book is one. Okay, well, here's the deal. The book is nice, but do you have something recorded?
Oh, yeah, I do. I have my film.
Recorded your 30 years?
Well, actually, my film spans 30 years of activism. There was a videographer at the planting in Hawaii in 1992. And actually, CNN broadcasts the planting around the world. So I imagine there's probably film archives at CNN that could be secured somehow. But
we need to get a hunt for those. And I know,
the planting in Sacramento for Earth Day was also filmed by I think it was Channel 12 in California. And it was broadcast on, I think it was KUBA. They were present, and so we had statewide coverage for the planting in '93, and then a couple of years later, interestingly enough, a couple of years later, the next year, Chris Boucher planted a field of hemp that was not harvested. They plowed it under. But then I think the year after that, Woody Harrelson planted some seeds. And he's actually being recognized this year for planting those seeds. I think it was in 1996 he planted them. That was the year I flew to Amsterdam with a one-way ticket and helped to start the Cannabis College. But Woody is being recognized at the Emerald Cup this year for his activism, which I'm delighted. You know, he's a great spokesperson for the plant. And but I'm always a little bit, I don't know, you know, it'd be nice if somebody recognized that I planted seeds like 4 years before he did.
I'm on it. Hey, Paul, you just opened up Pandora's box on a level for my own personal NFT project, Hero Packs, and that's how I'm seeding the world, right? And it's the utility within the NFT is, and with you already having the photography, videography, and things like that, I think it's time. What do you say we make the next Paul J. von Hartmann film? And we document taking what you already have and releasing it in a new way to the world.
I've got
But it has to be educational.
Absolutely.
I've got 50 hours of videotape from Europe that I shot in from 2001 to 2006. I drove around Europe in a little sports car with a big camera and documented the Festival de Chanvre in Montjean-sur-Loire, France. And I spent time in Switzerland at Chanvre Info with the late, great Andre Furst, who was a magnificent pioneer in cannabis, contemporary cannabis culture, who passed on a few years ago. And I filmed interviews with people who are no longer with us, who are, they are the heroes for hemp. I mean, they're the ones that, like Dr. Todd Mikaria. You can see the film that I made with Dr. Todd on Vimeo or YouTube, I think. But all of these things are sort of a collection of either films or literature. I wrote the manifesto for the world's first cannabis college in Amsterdam in 1998, entitled The Fundamental Challenge of Our Time. And it's available online. People can read The Fundamental Challenge of Our Time, or they can go to my Twitter at capital P, capital J, small VON, capital H. And that's my current Twitter account. My Project Peace Twitter account was canceled because I was posting information that was contrary to the mainstream narrative on COVID. And so I had my Twitter account censored after several years of posting information about cannabis and films and such. It all just disappeared one day. But PJ Von H is my new Twitter handle, and people can find me on Instagram. My photographs and illustrations, some of them are posted there. There's an interesting development a few years ago. Somebody wrote a book, a fictional book by the title Munich. And this book has been made into a film, and one of the primary characters has my name, and it's a Nazi that they use my name. Oh, I'm not. Yeah.
Who is sick?
Yeah.
Oh
Hey,
my
we
God.
could just twist it and leverage it.
Let me just finish. Let me just finish my thought.
Go ahead.
What happened? What that achieved? What that did was it obscured my name from the search engines, because if you type my name into the search engines without the J, then you'll come up with this fictional Nazi, and it has thrown a cloak or a screen over my work online.
Wow.
Which I'm not happy about at all. And if I could sue the shit out of
that's
these
why I'm
people,
laughing. I'm like, who's evil?
Well,
Yeah.
Paul,
Who's
all I
that
can
evil
say
person who did that?
is it sounds
Robert
like
Harris is the name of the author. Robert Harris.
What's the name of the author?
Robert Harris. And the name of the film is Munich.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like your legacy.
I'm outraged. I'm totally outraged by it.
Well, we're going to get a collective, and we're going to raise some hell on that. And aspect, because like what you said, Emma, on the question, it comes through. It was a beautiful question. Your legacy. What are you going to, you are a legacy. You've been leaving a legacy, Paul. And I am so damn excited to help spread that education of legacy, because everything about you is translation of education, and the way you're able to dictate it is inspiring on a level that can and does make and invoke change, right?
Well,
and
I'll tell you, Michael,
I'm gonna get you to the world, bro. I'm loving it. And I got one question for you.
Yeah,
got some big names wanting to come in, and I know they're going to listen to this. So I just got to ask, are you interested in partnering and saving the world and sequencing and doing awesome things and doing it on a state level, on a global level?
Well, I have been.
Perfect. Oh, I know it. Well, I just wanted them to hear it, because they're going to listen to this and go, holy shit. Because they're also been, traumatized by the stigma against cannabis. So,
of course.
And
well, we're all in this. We're all on, all of our feet are on the same planet. We're all in the same boat, and I know how to fly it. I know how to fly this plane. My grandfather was the seventh man ever to fly an airplane, and that makes me a third generation aviator. There aren't too many of those around. My son's a fourth generation aviator. And, the fact is that, people like Elon Musk are talking about colonizing Mars and doing all these things out in space. Well, if there's one plant that you want to take with you to Mars, it's cannabis.
Cannabis.
Because it produces oxygen, it sequesters carbon and other atmospheric gases. It also produces the terpenes that shield the planet from the solar radiation. So, it produces the clean energy, it produces the fiber, it produces the cellulose. All of these things are necessary in colonizing, new continents or new planets. I mean, on this planet, people took cannabis with them to every new continent that they settled, because they knew that if they had cannabis, they could survive. And in many cases,
I asked Paul, like with the things when you brought up Elon, it comes through. You bought Twitter, $44 billion. I just want to say, I hope kids aren't listening, but what the fuck? What if he's only spent 43 billion and he put $1 billion into what we've been talking about this past hour and a half? What kind of significant change would $1 billion be able to make? How many lives would it save? How many jobs would it create? How many? I think that'd have to be a whole nother show.
Well, yeah, but see, the thing is, I've always told people, they don't believe it, but I say it anyway. If you give me $1 billion, in a year, I'll give you back $1 trillion. That's the latent value of this crop. And it's not because I'm such an economic wizard. It's because the latent value of cannabis being essential makes it very easy to see that once a couple of things change, then access to $1 trillion industry is available to everyone. We can all be, the new energy barons of the 21st century if we harvest our hemp stocks. We can all, be food secure if we grow cannabis for seed. Those are things that make people truly free. If you can grow your own food and your own fuel and your own herbal therapeutics and your own tree-free paper and biodegradable plastics and all these other industries that will result from our purposeful replenishing of the atmosphere with terpenes, because, once you grow the crop, you have all this industry feedstock to work with that will drive the price of everything down, because the abundance of industry feedstock will be so enormous, because it has to be, because we have to grow a lot of terpenes for the atmosphere and a lot of oxygen. And all these things add up to an equation for survival. And no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, that's an equation that you want to be tuned into, because not only does it mean the quality of life on earth for everyone's children will be improved, but it also means that there's tremendous economic opportunity in the shift from the petrochemical fossil fuels military industrial based economy to the economy of abundance and peace and cannabis. So, if you want to live, farm with me. That's the message.
And that's a beautiful message.
Emma, we're going to have to make a little clip of just that last, how'd you say it? If you want to live, farm with me.
Yeah, I'm kind of ripping off Terminator. Remember Terminator? If you want to live, come with me. Remember that one?
Oh no, I pictured all of this stuff for you, Paul. We're gonna have some fun in the metaverse, and the capabilities of that same decentralization and capabilities for the whole, for the collective, the community, not just the 1%, right? And I look forward to the changes that are happening here this year. So,
well, I look forward to not having to wonder if my phone's going to be shut off because I can't pay
those
my bills.
Days are going away. No more surviving. We will all be thriving.
Well, the thing is,
we choose to farm with you.
Well, the thing is, the product development that I'm doing is worth billions. And so if people want to invest in my knowledge, I can promise with some high degree of confidence that their investment will be well worth the risk, because, as I said, it's not me, it's the latent value of the crop. But what needs to happen is that the THC limits on industrial hemp need to be suspended by essential military and civilian demand before we miss another growing season, which we're currently missing another growing season right now, because we aren't planting in relation to the volume of terpenes that are needed. And that's the if we don't replenish the atmosphere with terpenes, then nothing else that anybody is doing right now is going to matter very soon. It just won't. The increased solubility of mercury will create compounding problems that will escalate into thermonuclear war. And that's the, unfortunate reality of it. But if we want to avoid that unfortunate reality, then we have to be realistic about how to avoid it. And that's what we're running out of time to do, because even though cannabis is capable of doing all these amazing things, it does take time for those things to have an effect. And we need to understand that, by the time we realize it's too late to save this planet, it will have been too late for some time. So We need to err on the side of caution and take advantage of every growing season, because every growing season that passes without cannabis is gone forever. We can't.
Well, that's why the education is essential to bring it to the public, because the law will not change if we don't educate people. And that's what I see as the first step. We cannot put the carriage before the horses. Only Porsche doing it, but we cannot do it without that knowledge. And I was looking on Sunday, I was looking at the law in Minnesota, and I started to shake my head because they are going even. I was reading something that really made me laugh. Because now the government, if you're planting, you have a level of planting, and they go from federal, state, and federal. So if you're planting, I think, over 25 plants, then they're changing for you to plant cannabis to manufacture cannabis equals sale. And I'm like, how can you and how dare you, as a prosecutor, going that route, even if you don't sell it, but they decided to go through the loophole to prohibit people and will take them to court, to the state and federal court, to sue people. So it is very interesting to listen to this and looking at the law and how some of the lawmakers are switching, twisting some of the laws to try to prohibit the cultivation of cannabis. Here, Minnesota is one example, but there is other states that needs to be changed. But in order to do that, we really need to connect with the community and educate people. If we don't have the education, then nothing's going to change.
Well, one of my favorite quotes, Emma, is from Frederick Douglass. In 1857, Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will." And we have to hear those words. It never has, and it never will. And so the ball is in our court. We have to demand cannabis. We have to demand an end to the THC limits on industrial hemp. We have to demand that the military and the civilian populations coordinate in a Hemp for Victory campaign that was established during World War II as our best chance for overcoming these threats to national security and global integrity. And that is the level of activism that's required, the level of demand, where in a tug of war, the team that wins is the team that all pulls on the rope all at the same time. 1, 2, 3, pull. That's how you win a tug of war. Yeah. And that's what we need to do is the contemporary cannabis culture needs to recognize itself as being spiritually legitimate and culturally legitimate. And we don't need permission from this upstart regime to survive. We're at the point now where any compliance with regulation is defeat. Compliance is defeat. We need to grow as though our lives depended on it, because they do. And not only us, but everyone's children will suffer for our failure to recognize the true value of cannabis. An essential military and civilian demand will bring the military, both the active duty servicemen and women, and also the veterans, into alliance with the civilian population, the farmers and the manufacturers and the people that can turn this crop into food and fuel and medicine and building materials and paper and cloth and all these other things that are going to create jobs, that are going to heal the planet. They're going to do all the things. and most importantly, redistribute the true wealth of the world. Because right now it's the 1% versus the 99%. And that imbalance, that systemic imbalance, is as great a threat as environmental imbalance. The economic disparity that comes with unevenly distributed, finite, toxic resource dependence is something that cannabis will eliminate by redistributing industrial feedstocks throughout the countries where it grows. And so it's a win-win-win-win-win situation, which is what we need.
Exactly. And if we can stop that revolution and move it to the level that it needs to be through education, because I believe what has been missing so far is that education that been basically smothered. But as I said at the beginning of our talk, that because of social media and way now we can inform people, we can start to spread that word again, and it cannot be smothered this time around. I'm just curious to know, what are those people from the climate who claim themselves as to be the king and queen of climate changes will have to say at the end of the day, realizing that, by the way, you forgot that plant. What do you got to say about that, people? I would love to know what they got to say. I'm sorry, I like to poke at the bear.
That's okay. You know, what it is that the institutional funding punishes people who even think about cannabis. And so the institutional scientists have all been whipped into submission because they know if they propose cannabis inclusive solutions, they'll lose their funding. And so, you know, people like Michael Mann can't bring up cannabis because he'll lose his funding. And so, you know, it is ironically incumbent upon people like me who have a basis in science and have a direct experience with nature and who have, you know, the ability to communicate. You know, basically what I've been doing for the last 30 years is boiling the education down into sound bites. Because if you want to teach people, then the fewer words you use, the better. And in the case of cannabis and the revolution that it is a part of, I point out that the evolution of revolution is revaluation. Cannabis isn't illegal, it's essential.
Yes.
And so that simple transition, that polar shift in values, is very easily accomplished when you understand that drugs don't make seeds. Herbs make seeds.
Oh, absolutely. And on the top of it, drugs have side effects that are even worse than what they're treating. Because I got treated on a couple of things and I was ready the side effects. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? It's doing more harm than good. Well, but you solved your problem. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't help me in the long run. However, when you go the holistic way, because I go the holistic way, it's my choice. When you go the holistic way, you're looking at the plant and you're looking at over Asia and even the old Europe way, they used to use plants to heal themselves. So the holistic part of the cannabis should be shown and exposed to really show people what is that plant can do, because that plant is a miracle plant at the end of the day. Regardless if people think it's getting high like a kite, there is some essential healing part of that plant that is powerful not only for the earth, like you said at the beginning, but for ourselves as well. And why should I miss this? Because a bunch of people decided to put it as a prohibited, where we should be removed from the prohibited list.
Well, and it has to, again, the soundbite that I came up with to describe that is respect for nature. Do you respect nature or do you respect chemicals? You know, that's really the choice that people have to make. And I made my choice a long time ago. I broke my neck in a hang glider crash when I was 28. And cannabis went from being a recreational substance to being medicinal. And it has affected my healing over these 40 some odd years, to where now I'm actually in better shape than I was when I was, 30. My physical recovery from a broken neck is something that is worth regarding for people who would benefit from cell regeneration, because cannabis offers cell regenerative properties, and it also offers antibiotic and myriad other nutritional benefits as well. So, people have to choose who to trust. Do you trust Anthony Fauci, or do you trust Mother Nature? And Mother Nature, in my book, has always been analogous to what a lot of people call God. That's what, when I founded the California Cannabis Ministry, it's a non-religious, it's a secular ministry, and it's an individual ministry. It's not a group church. You can't join the California Cannabis Ministry because it's an individual relationship with what I refer to as the great you name it. Whatever you want to call God is fine with me. But, everybody has a direct individual relationship with the Creator. And if people choose to congregate in churches, that's great. But, that one-to-one relationship with Spirit is where cannabis affords a bridge for people who can put aside the first layer of consciousness and set it aside for a minute and involve their spiritual dimension to participate more fluidly. I think that people who have experienced direct relationship with Spirit, with or without the use of cannabis or other entheogenic substances, will understand that individual relationship is the most legitimate. And so that's why I founded the California Cannabis Ministry, and why I encourage people to initiate their own ministries, particularly if they're cannabis oriented people, because you don't have to smoke marijuana in order to have a relationship with the cannabis plant. Maybe you eat the seed for protein and essential fatty acids and essential amino acids and all of the other nutritional components within the seed. Maybe you wear the cloth. Maybe you use the paper because you recognize that by doing that, you are helping to heal the planet. That's a spiritual relationship with nature in the form of respect and concern. And those are the properties and the qualities that I try to develop in my conversations with people about cannabis, so that they can share that miraculous relationship, and they can participate and encourage the benefits in their lives. And it's just a wonderful thing to be a cannabis scholar, because you can talk with somebody about all the different dimensions of the plant, or the history, or the potential, or the economics. I was SEC qualified back in the 80s, working with the Equitable in the financial services industry. And so I understand economics. I really do. And cannabis affords a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity right now. And if people want to access that Gaia therapeutic economic relationship, I'm very happy to help people do that, because there is only one way to heal Earth's atmosphere. And if we run out of time, then we will really regret it. And our children will regret it even more. So I am motivated by concern for the other species with whom we share this planet. I always have been. And I have actually experienced interspecies communication with more evolved intelligence. And I have photographs of the experience that I could share with people. And so I really have quite a bit to offer anyone who is looking for solutions and trying to make sense of where we are, because we have to do that. We owe it to our children and the other species with whom we share this planet. And I'm happy to,
I agree. Because
to help.
We've been called what the most evolved species, but I feel like we're the less evolved at time, because some of our actions are not showing evolution. It show more regression than evolution at some point. So
we're an infantile species in terms of evolution. Our arrogance and our cleverness have outpaced our understanding of evolution and our role in it. And that has to be resolved. We need to correct that. And I can promise you, after having spent time with humpback whales and dolphins in Hawaii, and after having spent thousands of hours in the ocean as a commercial diver and as an underwater photographer and a sport diver, I can tell you that we are not the most evolved species on this planet, not by a long shot.
No. Yeah, we're the only one at war. So yes, it shows that we're not that evolved at some level. We're always bickering. If everybody could live in peace, we'll be just fine. Maybe we need to give everybody some seeds of cannabis and let them plant it, and we'll be just happy. I don't know.
Well, that is the key. We need to distribute seed so that everyone can help themselves, and then everybody will be able to help each other. It's dolphin economics says you help me help you help everyone. And It's based in abundance. And natural economics is abundance. It's man that has created the scarcity and the inequitable distribution of essential resources that we were all born into. So we think it's normal, and it's not. Abundance is normal. And if you were free to grow as much cannabis as you want, then you would be able to provide for all of the needs for you and your family and your community. And there are people right now that are making obscene amounts of money that would not be making those obscene amounts of money if you were able to provide your own fuel and food and all the other things you need to thrive. And so that's where we're at. We're at the end of the subterfuge, where we were told that fossil fuels are valuable and cannabis is bad. Well, the opposite of that is true. And that polar shift in values is the evolution of revolution. It's the revaluation. And that's the challenge of our time, the fundamental challenge of our time.
Yeah, I think we're on the verge. I think we're on the verge right now with what Heal the Planet we're going to do in September, and you're going to join us there, which I'm very excited with Renee. Being able to start to voice it, and after the event continue on a path of education so we can get vocals, more and more vocals, not only here in the US, but being able to having that event to broadcast and able to spread it so we can really start or continue that revolution to change the minds of people, and being able to reverse what has been set in a course since 1942. It's the time to do it now.
It is. And I have communicated globally. I've presented Cannabis versus Climate Change at the World Hemp Congress in Slovenia 5 years in a row. I have been filmed. I'm interviewed in the film Canna Movie, where I talk about cannabis and all the things it can do, and how Elon Musk should pay attention to this plant because it solves a lot of the problems that he's trying to solve. And so, the main thing is for people to understand that the UVB radiation is increasing, and we need to address that. And once we address that, which we can, then a lot of the other problems that we're facing will be resolved just because we address the UVB radiation. And if somebody has a better idea for addressing UVB radiation, I certainly have not heard it. But the biogenic production of atmospheric aerosol terpenes is absolutely priority one. And in doing that, we will solve world hunger, we'll solve the problems of overpopulation, of soil degeneration, of fossil fuels addiction, of endless war. I mean, those are all the global problems that cannabis can successfully resolve. And it seems like, we're dragging our feet just because we have been controlled for so long that the people who have been controlling us want to maintain that control. And we are in a position of having to demand, with the help of the military, the access to the tree of life, whose leaves will heal the nations.
Exactly. No, I agree. I totally agree. But I think that the groundwork has to continue with the education in order to access the military and the common people as well, because I believe that through the education and change of the law at the local level, then the federal level, then we can do something until, I think the federal will be a little challenging because of the lobbyists. And I brought it back in conversation a month ago to someone else. But it's a problem with the lobbyists. But if our voices are stronger enough and we can get those laws changed at the state level first, then the federal should be a walk in the park at the end of the day. But if we don't have the support from the people in the US to start with, and they all ponder at their lawmakers and whomever they elected, then nothing will change completely. So we have to start somewhere. And I believe in my heart that the education we're putting together, what we're going to do in September is going to, springboard to you and Renee to a level that will put you where you need to be as the experts, because you are the expert, no doubt about it, but make it more public so nobody can ignore it.
Well, what really needs to happen is that that essential civilian demand is an accelerated federal protocol that doesn't require us to change the laws. The laws will become obsolete. And the federal essential civilian and military demand will establish a new level of progress that we've never seen before, because national security and global integrity are at stake. We can't depend on our lawmakers to lead us if we are being threatened with global extinction. We have to do what we have to do, and we have to do it in a timely way. But what really needs to happen is that I need to testify before Congress and to introduce both the problem of increasing UVB radiation and the solution to it at the same time, because that's what we have time for. We have a spring planting season that is happening right now. And if we miss this spring planting season because the laws haven't changed in time, then that's not going to be a very good excuse to our kids about why the planet isn't livable. And so we have to prioritize change over governance. We have to figure out how to transcend the limitations without depending on other people to do what we need them to do. Because in the end, what it comes down to is whether or not you have access to this seed or not. And if you do, you have a chance of survival. And if you don't, well, then you have less of a chance of survival. And so the good news is that things are changing. The Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, has acknowledged that hemp is a climate smart commodity. It is and climate smart agriculture is something that our government is investing $1 billion into, which, isn't really in proportion to the urgency, but it is a step in the right direction.
I agree. But the state law needs to be changed too. And I believe with the education, bring it up to the federal state, but it's still, we're depending on two things. We're depending on the federal and the state. And the states needs to change. As I said, I read something here for Minnesota, which is ridiculous. It's against the law, actually, what they're doing. When they want to prosecute somebody who has more than 25 plants, and there was 25 plants, and I don't remember, 10 pounds of weed, and they decide it becomes a manufacturing becomes sales. It's like, no, it's not. They don't manufacture. What are they talking about? So there is a lot of things that by the education and pushing it, even going to Washington and see what they're going to do, can influence others, because we need, even if the federal pass, the state can still monkey around and blocking things. And I believe that if we can hit both of them, I'm thinking state first, but you're thinking federal, it doesn't matter which way it's going to go. Both of them need to let it go.
Well, I think that meeting with our state legislators is the most cost-effective way. But I think our ability to communicate globally, electronically, instantaneously affords us the opportunity to do both at the same time. I have recorded cannabis versus climate change in a minute and a half, and it's pinned on my Twitter account. And whether it's heard by people at the state level or the federal level, it's a global problem, and it requires a global response. And if cannabis is a strategic resource in 7 presidential executive orders signed by 7 different American presidents, which it is, then it's a strategic resource in every country. And every country needs to exercise essential military and civilian demand for this strategic resource.
Yep. I agree. And I think it's essential to start here. Like you said, for Fukushima, the US prohibited something so they cannot plant it. But if it's lifted up here, then it will help the rest of the world. I totally agree with you. Oh, yes, absolutely. It will be a miracle when that happens. But we need to work towards that. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things for this year, to get started and moving into the right direction and do justice for that plant. Because I'm looking at the holistic, as I said, I'm a non-user, all right? So I'm looking at the holistic side of that plant that has so much to bring to human, to the earth, to everybody, and the planet itself. Then it's a shame that we have not been able to do this for over 40 plus years. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's a crime on a level that can't be measured, because the nutritional benefits of cannabis seed are both unique and essential, not just for man. Legislating scarcity of a unique and essential nutritional resource is beyond the rightful authority of our species, because there are other species that depend on the unique and essential nutrition of cannabis in order to obtain optimum health and survival. And so for us to induce scarcity of a unique and essential natural resource is a crime against nature. And we are a part of nature. So obviously it's a crime against our fellow man, but birds and other animals that eat seeds, the bats now are dying because they don't have access to the terpenes that can help to eliminate the white nose syndrome that's killing bats by the millions. And these the colony collapse disorder in bees is a result of bees not having access to terpene rich plants like cannabis. I have a film that I made of a honeybee rubbing itself down from antenna to stinger with cannabis resin because bees have a symbiotic relationship with cannabis. And so, we have to respect these things and understand that if we short circuit these systemic relationships, that we're short circuiting all systemic relationships because everything is connected.
Exactly.
All systems are connected.
Exactly.
And we have to respect those relationships.
I totally agree with you. That's why it's so essential to have that education and the understanding what are the benefits of cannabis. And not only for people who think, like I did, okay, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, yes, when you think cannabis, you think pothead, you think people being stoned. But when you're studying the plant itself, you realize there is so much more benefits. And we need to make and do justice to that plant that can actually save and heal the planet. And not only for us, but for the animals. They are flying, crawling, swimming, whatever they're doing in there. So,
well, I'll tell you, I didn't start using cannabis. I didn't start smoking cannabis until after I graduated from college when I was 23. And that was because I felt the same way you did. I saw my roommates who were, red-eyed and stinky. And I thought, well, I don't want to be like that. And so I avoided cannabis until after I graduated from college because I felt an obligation to my my education, not to toy with my brain too much before I had educated myself. And so in doing that, I had the perspective that you've just shared. And yet, once I started using cannabis, I thought, well, you know what? This doesn't feel bad for me. Intuitively, this actually feels good for me. And so I decided when I was 23 years old that I would use cannabis until I learned whether it was good for me or bad for me. And if it was bad for me, obviously I'd stop doing it. And so I have been using cannabis ever since. And I've stopped a few times for a variety of reasons, but I've always come back to it. And I use it responsibly. And I try to help other people to understand it, even if they don't choose to use it, which I respect. I do command respect for my use of it because, I give respect. And so I expect respect in return. So that's the way I orient toward other people's approval or disapproval of it. When I broke my neck, I really didn't think I needed anybody's approval to feel better because the pain is excruciating when you have nerve damage. And so I didn't really have a choice at that point. And as it is now, the cell regenerative properties of cannabis seed nutrition and cannabis terpenes and cannabinoids and all the other flavonoids and things that are in the plant, I have access through a drink that I make called leche verde. And leche verde is the whole plant blended in spring water and strained. And it is, I think, probably the most healthful drink on the planet. It may reverse the degenerative aging process, actually. So that's been my experience with it. I can't say what it does for anybody else, but certainly I do know people that have been using leche verde for several years now, and are giving me feedback on the physiological benefits of it. So there is quite a vast science that hasn't been investigated yet that I'd like to see more people putting time and energy into. The whole plant nutrition.
There is a lot of science. Yeah, there is a lot of science that needs to be done around that plant to know even more, because I'm pretty much sure when I'm thinking about the plants in the holistic way, I'm sure in Europe there is some writing somewhere, some books where they talk about the benefits of it. The same with Asia area as well, Asia Pacific area as well. For me, like I said, I'm a non-user. I don't need this because I can connect with the universe or get high by myself by meditating. So for me, I never use this. I never saw the point. That's who I am. That's what my spirit is telling me. You don't need to use this. So I don't use it for that reason. I don't need it. I don't need this because I connect very quickly with the universe because I'm an intuitive. But it's very interesting to learn more about the plant and the benefits that can do, and what people are using it in their product, because now cosmetic is using some of the product based on marijuana. So it's very interesting to see the diversity of that plant. And I want to know more about it, actually, because I want to educate myself to the level that I'm not going to say to be an expert, but to be somebody who has a full knowledge of how that plant works and what are those hidden secrets. Like Chernobyl, for me, I'm interested to know more and stuff like that. So me, it's the learning of it as well and the education behind it, because the more education you've got, the more powerful you become to know what is right or wrong and ask questions, like I said, kicking the hornet's nest and say, well, why the people from the climate change don't talk about this one? Why are the government deciding to still put that plant into the prohibited list where there is so much benefits that could be done? So that's the reason I'm interested about it.
A lot of money involved, it always comes down to money. But historically, I'm looking at a book right now that it's called The People's Common Sense Medical Advisor by R.V. Pierce, M.D. And it was published at the beginning of the last century. At the end of the 19th century. It was published in 1895. And in this medical text, cannabis is referred to as an elixir of life. And it's, over 100 years since that book was written. And yet people still don't understand the potential that is unique to this plant. And you have to ask yourself why that is. If there was anything
because
else,
of the stigma. That's the stigma.
But it's that the stigma that's been manufactured for a purpose, to obscure the true value.
Exactly.
Because the other things that, the opioids and the, fossil fuels and the paper made from trees and, all those other industries that are competitive with cannabis have a vested interest in maintaining that reefer madness and that social disapproval of the plant. But Emma, it sounds like if you haven't tried it already, then in order to be fully educated at some point, it might be beneficial for you to try it and experience it on a level that is currently beyond your reach. I hope that I'm the one to sit down with you for the first time, if that happens. But
let's put it this way. I have no interest on smoking it. Now, eating the plant itself, eating the seeds, yes, I will be more than willing to do. Smoking it, no, I don't have that interest. But eating the plant using essential oils and stuff like that, yes, I would be more than interested to do that for sure.
Well, good.
Yes.
Good. Well, you can go to
yes.
the health food store right now and buy hemp seed in the health food store and start incorporating it into your diet. It is tremendously interesting. You can research or look up the nutritional benefits of hemp seed and develop a relationship with it on that level, which I would absolutely encourage you to do.
Oh, yes, and I wanted to know more about as well as amino acid and extraction of amino acid to that plant as well, because I'm very curious to know if you have people around you who are doing it or not, because there is that business side of it of, the amino acids, the hemp seeds, and all of that. Then I want to learn about.
Well, cannabis is unique in that it's the only common seed that has all three essential fatty acids in proper proportion for long-term consumption. And it has all of the essential amino acids in meaningful quantities. It's tremendously unique and essential just in terms of the essential fatty acids and the amino acids, but also the proteins, the edestin and albumin protein in the seed is unique to cannabis. And they're globulin proteins. You can get albumin protein from eggs, but you can't get albumin protein from any other vegetable source. And the edestin protein, which comprises 65% of the protein in the seed, and the albumin is 35% of the protein. But the edestin protein is foundational to our immune system. And it's just so key in the enzymatic function in our bodies and the different sodium channel, the potassium channels, the different channels within our bodies respond to the different nutritional elements in the plant. Dr. William Courtney is a very well respected authority on the raw plant nutrition that's available through cannabis, and his website is www.cannabisinternational.org, and people can access his infinite wisdom and his wife Kristen Courtney for the research that they've done on the nutritional benefits of the raw cannabis plant.
And that's what I'm interested. Now, you said that hemp seed is available to Whole Foods store, but the question I have for you is, all hemp seed the same, or do we have different kind? Because my only concern is, what do you know is a good seed or not? Are they the same? I have the same benefits, because I do know there is different strains for different cannabis plants. So the one they're providing it in those stores, are they all the same or not?
Well, there is variation between the plant material portions of the plant, but my understanding of the nutritional properties of the seed is that there is some consistency in that. And the hemp, the industrial hemp that's being used to produce the hemp seed products, is fairly consistent with the proteins and the essential fatty acids and those elements.
All right. I wanted to make sure, because, that's why the education needs to be there, and the understanding and recognizing, because as I said, I'm just learning some of those stuff. So I'm just at the beginning. You're already the master in the field. Me, I'm just the one who put her toes into the water and want to learn more. So I wanted to, and for people who are listening to us, because, when it's going to go, I'm going to release this one live. If it's not this afternoon, it's going to be tomorrow morning. That show is going to be live on Emma's Universe podcast. I want to make sure people understand as well, because I'm, every product or everything you're seeing in the market, you want to know if those seeds have a difference between one another and how to recognize it, because I don't know where they come from. So at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm going to go get some hemp seeds and I'm going to add it to my diet for sure. And I want to make sure that what I get is something that really have the nutrition in there, the amino acid, the protein, everything in there that it's supposed to have.
Well, most reputable companies are monitoring their nutritional content of their products. And for example, Nativa is one company that supplies hemp seed to the U.S. market. And they're organic hemp seeds. It's important to try to access organic seed. Also, in Portland, there's Pacific Foods, which produces hemp seed milk, which is really delicious. And it's a very accessible form in which to ingest the seeds. It's very easy to drink hemp seed milk from Pacific Foods, and I recommend that company's products very highly. But you know, the best source of hemp seed is from your local farm, and so trying to encourage the local production of hemp seed is what I try to do, so that people can be food secure. Whatever you depend upon for protein now may or may not be available very soon for a variety of reasons. So it's important for people to understand that conditions on this planet are changing, and we need to be secure in our access to complete nutrition. And cannabis provides that.
Okay. Yeah. That's what is needed. And you can make your own, actually, you can make your own milk if you got enough seeds. Actually, there's a way to do it too. I've done it for some other seeds to make my own milk. So yeah, because I'm actually looking right now. I went on my favorite place on earth. Maybe you don't like them, Amazon, and I'm looking at Pacific Food, which have unsweetened milk, hemp milk. You do have different bulk hemp seed. So it's good to know that it already exists. And for me to start to look at it and see if I can buy it. I'm curious to know for the test now for, they sell it at the Whole Food Market too. They send the hemp. Oh, well, I'm going to go to the Whole Food Market because they do sell the Pacific Food hemp unsweetened, actually, which is awesome.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah, but that's awesome. Well, that's the good news. I'm going to go and get some. I want to have a test of it, of the milk version of it, but I'm going to get the seeds as well. This is what I wanted too. So it's awesome. Well, it's great.
Well, I really like the sweetened vanilla.
The sweet vanilla. I don't like vanilla. I'm not a huge fan of vanilla. It's too bland.
It's not too much. Just a little bit of vanilla. Okay. But it's sweetened with rice syrup.
Oh, not bad. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's really delicious.
I can see this. Oh yeah, but this one they don't do it at the Whole Food store on this one. Yeah, I see this one, but it's I think out of stock.
See?
Well,
that's what I'm talking
your milk version, vanilla milk version of it, I'm sorry to say to people, it's out of stock where I am. I'm like, okay, a lot of people must like that vanilla version of it because it's out of stock. It's funny. Oh my God.
That's what
it's even EBT eligible. People.
What happens at the store?
Oh my God. Yeah. Believe it or not, it's EBT eligible. Do you know that? So people who are on welfare, who have EBT card, can buy actually the unsweetened plant-based milk, the hemp. I didn't even know that.
It's the best thing for you.
Yes, agreed. Oh my God.
Well, my son went from breastfeeding to drinking hemp seed milk that I made fresh back in 2007 before hemp seed milk was available commercially. And it was one of the product ideas that I had. I've been making hemp seed milk since 1997. And had been trying to, raise investment for product development. But I'm like a money magnet whose polarity is switched.
Okay.
So I have these great product ideas, but I just seem incapable of raising investment.
Well, I think with Michael, we got some ideas. We'll talk offline on this one because I think we got some ideas to help you. So I think you find the right people here that's going to be able to utilize what you've got and make it happen. How about that?
Well, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to a change in paradigm, and am happy to provide what I think is the best value for the money. If I had money to invest, I'd invest in me.
I agree with you too, because there is a lot of things that there's a lot of things that you've got. That's why I want to know more about this business. I want to dip, and don't ask me why. The universe is getting me in that direction, so I'm following what the universe is telling me. But I think there's a lot of good things with the cannabis and the hemp seeds and everything else that developing it to a point where we can do something, give it back to the earth, to the communities, and being able to help mankind and the planet itself. I think it's a great way to do it. So, and I don't live in utopia world. I live in this world, by the way, people.
Well, there you go.
That's yes.
Well, we'll get it done.
So, yes, I know. So, but I wanted to thank you, Paul. I know Michael had to jump to another meeting, but I wanted to thank you for talking with us today. It's been such a great journey here to be able to listen to you and realizing how much, knowledge you've got. It's amazing. And do more with you, because I know in September you will be with us at Heal the Planet event, and you're going to do some workshop and you're going to be educating people, but we're going to also ensure that everything that is done over there is being recorded, because we're going to broadcast what we're doing at that event. It's going to be broadcast worldwide. And we're going to keep track, because it's just the beginning to that revolution to move it up to the next level, which is removing it from the prohibited list and being able to have it accessible to people.
That's right. The evolution of revolution is revaluation.
Exactly. I love it. That's the right word on the top of it too. That's beautiful. I love it. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Emma.
I will post everything, as I said, tomorrow, and on my description of, because I do in my podcast, I have a little description. So I will have all of your links as well, so people can connect with you. And we're going to hear more from you within the next few months, and working with Michael. So it's going to be a great adventure. We're just starting right now on our side. And having you on board, it's just a pleasure and an honor to have you as the expert, as the person who has such a deep knowledge about the plant at so many levels. It's unbelievable.
Well, thank you so much. I am so humbled by your high regard. And I encourage you
I encourage you to
find my films and my photographs.
Yes.
Because I think you'll like them.
I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm pretty much sure too. So, but thank you so much, Paul. Bye.
Well, thank you, Emma.